Notice, I invite you to turn to 1 Samuel chapter 4. You ever notice how superstitious athletes are? Like, I don't know what it is about them. Have you ever heard of Mark Hargrove? He played baseball for a number of years. He would fiddle around when he was up at the bat. He would fiddle around with everything. He would, with his bat, with his helmet, with his gloves, his pants, his shirt, his sleeves, his sweat. Like, he actually got the nickname because he had to touch everything to make sure that he had adjusted everything. It was a superstition that he had. He had to be adjusted and touch all this. They actually ended up calling him the human rain delay because he took so long to finally get in the batter's box. Michael Jordan, I don't know if you knew this superstition he had. He wore his North Carolina jersey underneath. The one where he made the shot, he wore it underneath his Bulls jersey for a number of years. I'm like, huh, really? One soccer player, no lie. This is, I got this online. Yeah, trust online. Yeah, it's got to be true. One soccer player in Romania was quoted saying, "No curses," and he believed like people are cursing teams and players, and that happens. But he said no curses could affect him because he wore his underwear inside out. I have no idea. I don't understand. It's funny to watch these athletes boil down their athletic gifting to superstition and power. Like there's some kind of power, and if they can get this power, it's going to help them play at the highest level. Sports figures do it, but it's all over culture, and it's all over every country of this world. People have superstitions. People believe that certain patterns of behavior or objects could give them power to do what they want to do or over other people. Today's a story about that, but it comes from the most unlikeliest source. It comes actually from Israel themselves, who have God, and yet somehow they think they can create some kind of a end run around God. It says this in chapter 4. The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to battle against the Philistines, and they encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. Now, where is that? Well, if you look at the map up here, you can see Jerusalem. See the Dead Sea. Jerusalem's just right up there, and then you go a little bit up. If you're thinking of a clock, around 11 o'clock, and you see Ebenezer and Aphek, and they're up there. That's about 40 miles from Jerusalem, just in terms of point of reference. So it's all really close. Shiloh right now to the right, if you look at number 2 over there, that's the center of worship. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was at this point in Israel's history. It quickly gets shifted to Jerusalem under David's reign in another 25 years or something like from this story. So hopefully that gives you a little context here. They're encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines were encamped at Aphek. The Philistines drew up in line against Israel, and when the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the field of battle. And when the people came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Well, why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines?" Now stop right there. Don't read ahead. You ruined the story. It's an interesting question, right? They go into battle. They think they're going to win because this is the promised land. And they end up getting popped in the mouth. Well, 4,000 guys is not just a hit in the mouth. Like, that's 4,000 men that died. And they run from the battlefield. They get back together. The elders, so you got the leaders of Israel right there. And they're going, how in the world did this happen? Look who they say caused their defeat. The Lord. See, there are covenant people. If you don't know this, God made a covenant with them. He said, hey, look, I'll protect you. I'll cover you. I'll provide for you. I'm your God. I got your back. I'll take care of you. Here's the covenant, though. You need to worship me. Love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and live this life of holiness that I've called you. And so he gives them the 10 Commandments. And they have them build this ark, right? And so in the ark, the 10 Commandments are there, along with the rod of Aaron, which budded, and then a jar of manna, which was this miraculous bread God sent to provide for Israel when they didn't have any food at the time. And so He's this God who's going to provide for him. The covenant, though, is you will obey me, you'll love me with all your heart, and you'll live for righteousness. That's the covenant. So they lose 4,000 men. What do they conclude? Philistines beat us? No. That's not even who they blame. They blame God. God caused our defeat today. They have a real good theology of the sovereignty of God. The problem is they don't believe it in practice. Because if you remember, they've been 20, 40 years in this malaise, spiritual malaise of everyone doing whatever they wanted to do, right? So they haven't been following God. And they line up for battle, and they get beat bad. And they go, why did the Lord defeat us today? He goes on and says, well, we got an idea. Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord here. And you see the picture up on the screen. From Shiloh, that place of worship, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies. And so the people sent to Shiloh. So that's about 20 miles away. So this isn't going to be fast. This is, at least a day or two journey, because you have to, depending on how you bring the ark, but you should be bringing the ark on poles, and I don't know if they did that. We didn't give us that information, but it's a little bit of a delay here between the first battle and the second battle. They get the ark finally comes, and they say, hey, we want the ark, so they send for it, and the Ark of the Covenant, where the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. So they go get the ark. They got at the front of this. If you can go to the next slide, I think it shows the ark. They got it. I thought about showing like Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's just, you can go watch it. They send for the ark, and the presence of God would reside on top of the ark there, between the seraphim, those angels with their arms out, after the sacrifices, and it would be the one time a year his presence would come. They bring this, and their idea, is like, hey, we need the ark. We need God here, right? And then at the front of the procession is, I'm like, if you're someone who is godly and following the Lord, and you see who is leading the procession, your heart's just like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? We got Hophni and Phinehas. I mean, that's like having Kanye West and Jake Paul lead. It's about that bad. Like, are you kidding me? These are our two godliest people leading the procession. Like, that's all we can muster up in our nation. So these two guys are at the front of the line leading this procession in. And as soon as the ark of the Lord came into camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout, yeah! And the whole earth resounded. Now, this is interesting because they're actually going with history here, right? You think about it. Jericho, walls of Jericho, right? First battles, they come into the promised land. They got Jericho, walled city. We're going to die. And God says, no, I want you to get the ark out in front of you. You're going to march around the city once a day for 7 days. On the seventh day, you're going to march around 7 times, and then you're going to shout real loud, and then watch what I'm going to do. And that's what they do, and the walls fall down, and they conquer Jericho. So they're thinking, I got an idea. Let's get the ark and let's shout real loud. And God is going to save us. They had precedent. The problem was it's an end run. An end run, that phrase came from football a number of years ago, and it's the play where the running back or whatever receiver would try to run around the outside of the defense and get to the end zone, right? But if he can get around the outside, you can do an end run around them, and then you got open territory, open field all the way down. It's called an end run. You ever try to do an end run around God? Yeah, he is. End runs never really go well, but this is an end run. Trying to get around God to get to the touchdown. So the Philistines are there, and the Philistines hear the noise of the shouting. And they're like, what is going on? What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean? And so that takes some time because they got to sneak somebody over and find out what's going on and then come back. And when they learned that the ark of the Lord had come to the camp, the Philistines were afraid, and they said, a god is coming to the camp. And they said, woe to us. It's over, man, right? Nothing like this has ever happened to us. Like, woe to us. Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck down the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews as they've been to you. Be men and fight. You almost want the Scottish, William Wallace. Hey, let's fight. But it's not. It's Philistine. It's interesting. They appeal to their manhood, and they appeal to the fear of being slaves. That's what they're appealing to. They have great memories, and the reputation of Israel's God is well known. This is what? I don't know how, a couple 100 years, 300 years after the Exodus? Like, this is a long time. And the nations around Israel know about their God. Now, they don't have the doctrine all correct. They think gods, but they remember, they knew, and they actually believe what happened in Egypt was legit, that God actually did send those plagues. And so they're scared. They're totally scared. And they're over here. They don't want to run, because if they run, that means, well, they're going to be slaves, and they don't want to stay, because if they stay, well, Israel's got their God, and we're dead. But they stay. And they fight. And so the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated. And they fled, every man to his home, and there was a very great slaughter. For 30,000 foot soldiers of Israel fell. And the ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. It never goes well when we try to do an end run around God. We do end runs. As Christians, we do end runs just like Israel. They're just different ones. I don't know if you've ever thought about that. We do end runs when we think about spirituality and the things that we have that we would call sacred objects. We do end runs with practices. And what we do is we somehow ascribe to them power that can get us what we want. I don't know if you've ever thought about that or seen that come to play in your church, in your life, in the life of others. The Israelites understood God had power. The Philistines understood God had power. Neither one of them truly understood God, which is interesting. There's another superstition. This is the guy I was trying to find, Gene Mauch, or I can't remember. Mock. There you go. He was a baseball manager. When his team would win a game, as a superstition he had, he wouldn't clean his uniform. So when his teams went on winning streaks, he became known as the smelliest manager in the major leagues. And they would go on 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks, and he'd never wash his uniform. Can you imagine being in the dugout and just, oh, golly. I'm like, as a team, we probably just lose. Let's lose. So it's our desire to manipulate life, right? To get the outcome we want. Like, that's just what it is. It seems ridiculous, but that's what it is. We think we can somehow manipulate life by doing A, B, and C, or getting this or having that. And God very clearly stands right in front of Israel and causes their defeat. We pick up this in verse 12, a man of Benjamin, that's one of the 12 tribes, ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes torn, with dirt on his head. So that was a 20-mile run in one day. And when he arrived, Eli was sitting on a seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. Isn't that interesting? It's not trembling for his boys. It's trembling for the ark. He's the high priest. This is happening under his watch. And even as messed up as he is, he still knows it should never have left. And when the man came into the city, he told the news, and all the city's crying out like, that's awful, because they probably have lost loved ones, right? And when Eli heard the sound of the outcry, he said, what's this uproar? And the man hurried and came, told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old. His eyes were set, so he couldn't see. And the man said to Eli, I am he who's come from the battle. I fled from the battle today. And he said, well, how did it go, my son? And he who brought the news answered and said, Israel has fled before the Philistines. There has also been a great leader among the people. Oh, great leader, great defeat, sorry. Your 2 sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured. As soon as he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backward from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for the man was old and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. Now his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant and about to give birth. And when she heard the news about the ark of God was captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed and gave birth, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, so she's dying in childbirth, the women tending her said to her, don't be afraid, for you have borne a son. But she didn't answer or pay attention. She was completely not there. All she was overwhelmed by the grief of what had just happened. She named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God had been captured and because her father-in-law and her husband. And then she said, so it's repeated now twice, the glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured. We get the end of the story, or a sub-story within 1 Samuel. Hophni and Phinehas are dead. God prophesied it. It's come true. If you look at their tribute from God, these are priests. The tribute is this: they died. That's all God had to say about them. You look at Eli, high priest for 40 years. What is the tribute that God gives? You always want to see what the tribute God gives to his people when they die. It is so telling. What does he say about Eli? Eli was old and heavy, and he died. Judged Israel for 40 years. That is not what you would call a great endorsement. It's so interesting because Eli knew, and he still would not stand for righteousness. He would not. His daughter-in-law dies. He has a grandson who, what a horrible name. I mean, that's just an awful name to give. We don't really name our kids after bad things or bad events. Like, you think about that. That's a horrible name. Like, what would you, I mean, compare like 9/11. Like, would you call your child 9/11? Like, and we kind of want to laugh. We kind of want to go, like, Scott, can you even say that? That's what that's like. Like, how do you name your child? But that's how bad it was. The presence of God had left. And you see the judgment of God that comes on. It comes on Israel. For what? For this. They thought they could take the ark of God, something that's sacred, and that the ark gave them power. The ark gave them the ability to do what God does, but they didn't have to deal with God. They did an end run around God. See, the covenant says if you want God, you have to come with love, all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you have to come with a heart that wants to obey and submit and pursue righteousness and holiness. That is how you get the presence of God and all that he brings. Not just power, protection, sustenance, right? Sustenance and provision, all the things, the blessings of God. We're in a new covenant. Our covenant goes like this. Jesus died for us, our sins. The only way to get to salvation, Jesus says this, is like, look, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. You don't get in-runs in the covenant that we're under. So here's what the church does. The church has done this just like Israel does. Can't remember what philosopher said. We are forever idol-making factories. So we'll take the cross, hang it around our neck. The cross, which is a sacred symbol. Hang it around our neck. That's not bad. That's a great thing. We'll take the ichthus, right, the fish, which was kind of the code that they would draw on the sand, fishers of men, ichthus. And we take the ichthus, a mark of the early church, and we'll get a bracelet with it. We'll get a necklace. We'll hang it on our wall. If you're part of traditions that have to, that come from your Eastern Bloc countries, and you got the Orthodox side, they'll take the seeing eye. And for us, it's all enmeshed with cult. Like there's so much of that's enmeshed with the cult if you know the seeing eye. But you'll take the seeing eye, which comes from God as all-knowing, all-seeing, right? And so he sees us all. So it's a sacred thing. It's right out of the Bible. And we'll create an amulet and a bracelet, and we'll wear it. And what starts to happen is, rather than it being a sacred symbol that reminds us that we need to go to God, we start to go to that. And it starts to communicate, or not communicate, we start to believe it actually has power. So we'll put on the cross, and we'll put on the amulet and the bracelet and all this stuff and believe that's actually going to protect us. That, in biblical terms, is called an in-run. And God actually says, when you start to go to something other than me, even though it's a sacred object, this is the Ark of the Covenant. Can there be any more sacred object than that? This is where the presence of God resided, and yet they turned it into a magic box. So that they thought they could manipulate God and get his power without going through God. God will not have it. He will not. And if that's a pattern that's persistent, it actually opens us up to demonic influence. Because now we're trying to get power, and God says, I don't give power like that. That's not how this works. If we start to go to that, and we start to believe that that's giving us protection, we're going to something that has demonic power behind it. And sure, it can do stuff. Demons can do stuff. The Bible warns against this. We'll create, and this isn't bad, right? We'll create figurines of heroes. We'll create posters of heroes, paintings of heroes of the faith. Is that wrong? No. Are you kidding me? Saints who've lived for God and have done famous things for the Lord, why not? That's awesome. We'll build cathedrals so you come in and you get the majesty of the Lord. And I've been in cathedrals, like if you've been to the National Cathedral, if you've been over to Europe and some of those cathedrals, they're awe-inspiring. Like you literally worship the Lord as you go in. But what will we do? We'll turn those objects into some kind of a relic, into some kind of thing that we can channel power and say, oh, I go to that place. Oh, I've been to that place that gives me power. Or that I go to that church, that building right there, and that protects me. It's like, what? No, it's a sacred place. That hero of the faith, that if we get the statue, the post, yes, great, sacred, awesome. But as soon as we start to go to the relic and go to the church and go to the building, if you go to the building, right, and you go to the bracelet, and you go to the Central America, South America, I mean, this is something I've encountered a number of times. We'll put a bracelet on a baby right when they're born, a little red bracelet, to ward off evil. Churches do it. I'm telling you right now, that bracelet is an opening to the demonic realm. Where is it written? It's not in here. God will not have his people do end runs. You only get power and protection through Jesus Christ. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father. You don't get to the touchdown, the spiritual touchdown, heaven, unless you go through Jesus. He is jealous, and he refuses to let his people try to find a different way around, even though it seems sacred. And it is sacred. There's no way you can't say the Ark of the Covenant wasn't sacred. It was. He will not let people do that. I don't know if you're doing end runs around God. I don't know if you've ever thought of it like that. And some of you are like, that's wrong. That's a thing. This is a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. I don't know how you look at sacred objects in your life. I don't know how your relationship with God is right now. Are you wanting to connect with God? But you know, if you have that conversation, you start that conversation, he's going to start talking about something. Well, it was the same thing he was talking about last time you talked to him, but you didn't want to do anything about it, right? And so we're trying to do something else because we don't really want to have the conversation. Israel didn't want to have the conversation because the real conversation is, well, you guys don't want to go through God anymore. You don't care about holiness and righteousness and loving the Lord, your God. I don't know. Let's just pray. I invite the team to come up. Lord, I pray over us right now. Holy Spirit, if there are ways that we are trying to manipulate life so that we don't have to go through you, so that we don't really have to deal with you, Lord, if there are things that we have in our possession that we actually depend on for protection and power, these sacred objects that we go to, Lord, would you call us back to you? Would you call us to set aside these things? If you're doing an end run and you know it, if you've got things that you look at in your life that you go for power, you're not going to him, you're going to those things for protection, for good fortune, any number of things, God would have you lay them down. You may not be able to have them in your possession, even if they're Christian. If you just have a heart right now that is wanting to just get what you want and try to do it without God, and it's not even about objects, it's just trying to do that end run and manipulate life, and he's talking to you right now. Stop before it's too late. Jesus, we want your glory. I don't think we ever would want to see this happen. We don't want your glory to ever leave, your presence to ever leave us, to leave our church, to leave our families. Would your glory even fall right now? And we say this with open hearts. You said it, Jesus, we believe it. You are the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through you, and we stand on this truth. Hold us fast to our covenant with you. You and you only. Christ, Christ only. Jesus, the only way.